ad maiorem Dei gloriam. It's Latin for the greater glory of God, and it's the motto of the fine institution behind me. Now, some of us have chosen to live that motto in different ways. You see, some of us have taken upon themselves the responsibility of organizing a Thanksgiving drive to feed families across the greater New Orleans area, while others have decided that they're going to use their gifts and talents to make silly YouTube videos and hope that you laugh. I am a big proponent, though, that you can live this motto out in many different ways. Fortunately for us tonight, the past league champion, Daniel Augustin, he's doing some mission work out in Nebraska, and he's going to be telling us which lineups are going to need some divine intervention to make the playoffs this year. Fold your hands and look to heaven. Guess what, folks? We're back for another week of Chris's Picks. Well, hello. Welcome back to Chris's Picks. I understand that I have been gone for some time and people were asking where the show was. We had to focus on school a little bit, but I thought that this was a good time to bring you a little holiday special episode. So this will be the last episode of Chris's Picks, not of the year, not the last episode of the year, just the last episode of the regular season. So we will film this episode. It'll be our Thanksgiving episode. And then we will take a 2-week break so that I can study for finals. And then we will be back once week 1 of the playoffs rolls around. So that's going to be a great time of the year for this league, but it's going to be an even better time of the year for me because I will have a little break and it will be the Christmas season. So fun times for sure. Now, a lot has transpired in this league since I've been gone. We won't talk about all of it, but I want to briefly bring you back to week 8 because that was the last episode we had. And the reason I bring you there is because we have to talk about the records. So I went 3-3 that week, and Logan, shock among shocks, Logan went 4-2. So he beat me at my own game, which means that my total on the year is 28-14, and the guest picker total on the year is 27-15. So kudos to Logan, hat tip to you. You've brought the guests within one game of my record. I think that I will still remain in first when it's all said and done, but we will see. Now let's talk about last week's games. So I'm going to be talking about week 11 games because that's what's most relevant to the league. Well, they say one's a crowd and two's a party. The Chubby Dubbies have now suffered 2 losses on the year, coming in back-to-back weeks, mind you. Daniel's team was led by rookie Tank Dell, who had 149 yards and a touchdown to boot. He's heating up at the right time, folks. Team Happy Ho has done what half of the league has accomplished at this point, and that is defeat the Mahomies. Trevor Lawrence had a banner day in which he accounted for 262 yards and 4 total touchdowns. Harry is squarely in the playoff race. Blake and his can't guard Jameis team once again found their way out of last place after defeating Williams' Dixieland Dreamin' team. It was quite the upset. And Blake did all of this in spite of a big fat goose egg from Xavier Hutchinson.
Here we go. I hope you're hungry for nothing.
Thankfully, he had a huge performance from DK Metcalf. So the race for last is arguably just as interesting as the race for the last few spots on the playoff this year. There are 3 teams competing for last place. All of us have a tied record. We'll get to that more as we go along. Chasing more Pokemon smoked Team Pending Trade, who looked like he didn't even try to field the team last week. Come on, Bill. Dan was led to victory by DJ Moore, who had his first big day in a while, racking up 96 yards and 1 touchdown. Well, he dressed like Alfredo Linguini from Ratatouille for Halloween, so it's only fitting that Logan and his Team Takeout team survive an absolute squeaker against Gritty and the Jets. Get it? Like a squeak, like a mouse.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Folks, it's been a while since I've been on the show here. These are stretches. We've got to acclimate back into the jokes. Give me some time. Calvin Ridley bet on himself and scored nearly 30 fantasy points in this one, folks. Logan keeps pace with Blake to avoid last place. Big win for Team Takeout. And finally, Jack's Hunter Biden laptop team finished with the most points scored in Week 11. Hat tip to Saquon Barkley, who scored twice for Hunter Biden's laptops. Which means my sad sack team is in last place, and Dave has my first round pick. You know, a lot of teams in my position right now would panic. They would dwell on the past. They would anxiously stay up all night. I'm doing none of those things. I'm doing none of those things because I'm so confident in my windshield rather than my rearview mirror. I don't even care. Congrats, Dave. Have the pick. Who cares? On to the guest picker.
Familiar highways, lined with leaves turn brown, making my way back into my hometown. Funny how this all looks different, but it feels the same.
Welcome back to another week of Chris's Picks. Well, folks, he's back in town. Daniel Augustin, the two-time defending champion, the only champion that this league has ever seen. Daniel, we're glad you could be here and make some time for this episode.
Thank you, Chris. I'm super excited to be here and looking forward to a three-peat.
Okay. Well,
one day we'll actually wear that jacket that William has been holding on to, sewing my name on twice.
You don't even wear the jacket, I'm sure. Daniel's out in Nebraska these days with the amongst the corn.
The Cornhuskers. I've actually become somewhat, if you can call it a fan of Big Ten.
But I cannot see. I'm legally blind. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm innocent.
A fan of Big Ten sports.
Oh, goodness.
But not
gracious.
football. Right now, we're on the Husker volleyball team, #1 in the nation right now. Took down Wisconsin. That was one of the games of the year. And then we also took down Penn State, who almost beat us, but they ended up beating Wisconsin. I'm a big volleyball fan now.
He's changed. He's refined.
Can't you tell by the goatee and my volleyball knowledge?
Goodness gracious. Well, Daniel, I want to get into the picks. And we're talking fantasy football, not volleyball.
Yes.
But I'm going to put you on the spot here because controversy was afoot last week. You had... I'll just say it. I mean, we don't mince words on this show, so children under 10, cover your ears. It was a dumb trade. It was a really silly trade. Daniel, defend yourself to the people because I think you got robbed.
Okay, well, let's just take a little trip down memory lane. We'll learn some Cho Dynasty history. There are many things about things that I have done that have been called silly. My original draft. My trade with Harry for Youngway or with Youngway. My decisions to start rookies at crucial points in time. My original trade with Alvin Kamara for Najee Harris, which has turned out beautifully in my favor.
Which I saw coming, by the way. I said that it would turn out in your favor. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So at this one, we don't make too many decisions with the head. If you haven't exactly noticed, we make some of them. A lot of them come from the heart, and I sent a message in the group that didn't seem to have been taken too seriously. But there was an overall a distaste in the locker room and from the management point of side of just not only the production of Zach Charbonnet, who is supposed to be this elite running back right off the bat, but also his terrible attitude. It's just toxic for the locker room.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Yeah, well, congratulations on getting the bag of Doritos Jonnu Smith for him. So I hope he really helps you. You know, the difference between all those other times and this time, Daniel, we were wrong then, we're right now.
And we're going to play back this video the end of next year when Zach Charbonnet has a career-ending injury.
Oh, gosh.
And Jonnu Smith is named the starter because for whatever reason, Kyle Pitts went insane. He pulled an Antonio Brown.
If that happens, I will quit the league. I promise you that. Okay, well, that was Daniel's explanation. I hope that was sufficient. It wasn't for me, but, we have to move on, and history does bode well for Daniel, so we'll see if he three-peats. And actually, the first game, this is a great segue. The first game we're talking about is Stephen Stogie's versus the young and the holeless.
Yes.
So, look, I am not the wittiest person on the block. We all know this. I lack some intelligence in some crucial areas. So the theme for this week is Thanksgiving, as trite as that is. So hopefully by the end of this episode, you're not stuffed with all the jokes that I've got.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Cue laugh track, definitely.
I've got cooking here. But Daniel, I look at this matchup, and this is like, I don't even want to talk about this game. This is like you're sitting next to that aunt that you have at Thanksgiving and you don't want to be there. She's asking you really personal questions. You haven't
That
seen
she
her.
knows the answers to, but is going to ask them anyway?
Yeah, and it's like we have no prior relationship. There's no reason for you to be asking these questions.
We call her Aunt Carol. I don't have an Aunt Carol. It's just what we call her.
Okay, I was about to say, Aunt Carol is on blast right now. But anyways, that's my team. There's no one I really even want to highlight. There's no one worth mentioning. Obviously, you're being led right now by the astronaut himself, Josh Dobbs.
Yes.
Tank Dell, a rookie. Okay, an interesting draft pick from Daniel. He's now the number 15 wide receiver in fantasy football as a rookie. Pretty impressive stuff. Cooper Kupp is questionable. I don't think it's going to matter because Tyreek Hill is a machine and he's slotted in your lineup. I've got you in an easy one. Daniel, what do you think?
Well, I want to be gracious to my opponent, and I want to point out some virtuous things that I see. One being Geno Smith. I've been a fan of Geno Smith since he really became relevant again in the league. And although he's questionable right now, I think he's still got some in the tank to put up 20, 25 points. And then I would love to see, I don't know how to say his name, Achane.
Yeah.
That's a cool name. If he can become healthy again, I mean, you have Raheem Mostert, who's also a little bit questionable and hurt right now, who I think is he's a top 5 running back, which is crazy that the Dolphins have had 2 top 5 running backs.
Yeah, Mostert actually might be 1 somehow. Yeah,
He could be. I think last I checked, I think he's number 2. But if Achane, if he can be healthy and have a good game, I think that could be a surprising swing for you. That being said, I'm very confident. Even if Cooper Kupp lays a goose egg, I think the rest of my guys will kind of pick up the slack. And I've been a little bit concerned about Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
Either he's out of fuel or he's out of lawns to mow. I don't know what it is. I call him the lawnmower. But he's been having not a great past few games. So I'm a little bit worried about that in the long run. But yeah, I have me winning as well.
Well, yeah, that's not a hot take, folks. I mean, this is par for the course for my season. I'm just trying not to finish last at this point because Dave has my pick. On to the next game, Chasing More Pokemon versus Team Takeout. This is a close call. I like both teams. I think it's closer than what the experts predict. Sleeper's got this one pretty favorable to Dan. This is like choosing mashed potatoes or macaroni. And it's like choosing mashed potatoes or macaroni on your second run through of the meal. Because you're like, okay, you can't have both. You're on limited space at this time.
And they're both pretty filling.
So you've got to pick one. That's a close call, and I think this game's a close call too. Luckily for Dan, Jahmyr Gibbs is doing exactly what he was drafted to do. Finally, the Detroit Lions are using him in an acceptable fashion. You can always count on Puka Nacua to be a threat, as well as Jamar Chase, 2 really young wide receivers slotted in for Dan. Logan's team looks a little different. No more Derrick Henry. He polished off a blockbuster trade with William, who has just been making all the deals these days.
Types.
So
you don't even see the ones that are rejected either.
Yeah, well, the ones that are rejected are ridiculous. If you rejected anything from Will after seeing your trade, I can promise you it had to break laws in several states.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus is the capital of Ohio.
Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, these are still crucial running backs for Logan, so I think he'll be fine there. Kincaid has been sneaky consistent as a tight end this year. He is now a top 10 tight end in the league. It's a close call, Daniel, but I do like Dan in this one for the reasons I mentioned, specifically Puka and Jamar. What do you think?
Yeah, I like those as well. And something that I'm looking at on the app, which I really appreciate, is the average fantasy points per game that's being projected here. And Dan's got a 107.46, and Logan has a 86.49. But in terms of if we're looking at booms or busts for teams, I think Logan showed, especially, was it last week, that he has the potential to boom.
Yes.
Calvin Ridley went off.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley went off, and so did Shakir, who I didn't know actually existed until that game.
So that play. He had one play.
So there is potential to have some boom here, but if I'm talking reasonably, I don't think Shakir is going to have the same game that he did before. Breece Hall and Robinson have both been doing great. They're up against 2 tough defenses. And it's always interesting to see how Atlanta and New Orleans are going to play, because they don't seem to play how the rest of their season goes. Like Atlanta versus New Orleans is its own beast, its own game. So Bijan Robinson's either going to get a ton of yards and a ton of points, or he's going to be held to almost nothing.
Fair. Especially with, the Saints front seven has been pretty consistent with stopping the run this year. So that is interesting insight. Do you have a pick?
Yeah, I think with just the combination of Prescott with Eckler, even Moore could go pretty big, and I think Nakua has been stealing a lot of the limelight from my boy Cooper Kupp. I think I have Dan here by a pretty good margin.
Okay, all right. So Dan's got Dan. Go figure. On to the next one. We're talking Gritty and the Jets versus pending trade. Daniel, I look at this. I look at these two teams. These guys are fighting over the last bit of cranberry sauce.
Different? Did you put anything different in it?
Cranberry sauce.
No one likes cranberry sauce. But Gritty and the Jets in pending trade have found themselves. They're both 5-6 on the year. Both somehow have a shot at the playoffs. Both have very little shot at the playoff. It's an interesting dynamic here, and you're gonna see a matchup that I think will become classic in years to come. It's going to be Fields versus Stroud at quarterback. Now, this game is largely about me, okay? Because I have funded these teams. It's like, how can I say this? That's going to get cut. Anyway. I might be a little too saucy.
Oh, man.
I might be too saucy. But
we're having a spicy Thanksgiving meal.
It's spicy. That's Tabasco sauce, all right. But here's the thing. I gave Swift and Adams to Drew. I gave Kittle to Dylan. All of these used to be Stogie's players, and now they're playing for Gritty and the Jets and pending trade.
Look around you. Look at this. We created this. This didn't exist before we were here.
The big question I see here is, will Justin Jefferson play? He was supposed to get back on schedule last week and play in the game. He did not. I think that he'll play this week, although there's been some interesting comments made by the Vikings on that regard. But I think if he plays, Drew wins easily. I've got Drew in this one. Daniel?
Okay, yeah, I think, looking at that Fields move, the latest that I looked at it seems like he's going to be playing. He doesn't have any questionable designation, but again, I don't think that's due until later on in the week. There's also no kicker slotted, so that takes off a few potential points that are put there as well. Man, I'm very curious. I think if Fields plays, I'm gonna have to go with Dylan. Okay. I think he has a lot more boom players, and I'll tell you why. So Cole Kmet has been doing really, really well as a tight end for Drew. I don't think it's gonna be the same way, particularly if a lot of it is resting on Fields. But I'm looking at Justin Jefferson. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of expectation for him to come back. And he already has a questionable designation. And from my 2 minutes of research, it seems that speculation is that he already has that designation because they're not sure if he's going to play. And I'm wondering, too, if he does play, is he going to get the 15.5 points he's projected from this whole season? Yeah. And here's why. Because you have Young Hawk, as Harry likes to call him, in the tight end slot, who is the number one tight end right now, and one of the top receivers. And then you've got your boy, Addy the Batty, Addison, who's also been raking in a lot of receptions as well. So I think you have this new quarterback coming in, who already, he said himself, I don't know many of the names on this team, I think he's going to have a fair distribution. And I don't know if Jefferson's going to get those 15 points, even if he does play. So I think if that quarterback situation's figured out, if Dylan finds a kicker to put on the team, I'm actually going to take Dylan in this one.
Maybe we'll see Ryan Suckup back. Your analysis was so good, you've almost convinced me to switch. I'm not going to switch, but I do find it interesting because I almost rarely, if ever, pick Drew to win these games. And I think that you might be onto something, even if Jefferson does play. There are more weapons now. He's coming back from injury, new quarterback. 15 points might be a tough row for him to hoe. We'll see if that happens. On to the next one. We've got the Mahomes versus Can't Guard Jameis. Imagine sitting next to your grandma in Thanksgiving.
I can smell her already.
Well, and here's the reason why I say this is because we're going to talk about this game, but we're around sensitive ears. Okay, sensitive ears. You have to watch what you say around your grandma. You have to watch what you say around one of these teams. about the Mahomies. Dave's got weapons. Smith, A.J. Brown, Jonathan Taylor back from bye. Unfortunately, Dave was dealt a very heavy blow last week as Mark Andrews went down. He's out for the year. So now Dave, it looks like Dave's going to be slotting in Cade Otton, who is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end. He's going to be slotting him in. Even if Otton does well enough to be a starter for Dave, he's not going to match the production that Mark Andrews had. You look on the other side of things, DK has been more consistent in the last 2 weeks for Blake than he has been in quite some time. Lamar Jackson, we talk about him every week we do this show. He's a top 5 quarterback. He can change any game. Even as bad as Blake's roster can play sometimes, Lamar Jackson instantly puts him in any game he plays if he can break the 20, 25-point threshold. I will plead the fifth for the rest of Blake's team, and I will be declining to comment on who I'm picking.
For all of the reasons provided in my answer, which is incorporated herein, in its entirety, I decline to answer the question.
Which means I'm picking Dave.
Yeah, I'm going to speak the most fairly that I can. He's got a player in here whose first name starts with an X and who's projected 0.27 points. I've never put somebody, I think I'd rather put somebody in who's out who has 0 points than to see the false hope of a 0.27 projection. Like you said, Lamar Jackson has a chance to go big, but I don't think he can make up for the 40-point projection swing that Dave has. And I don't usually look at projections, but I think these are pretty accurate. So I'm going to have to go with the Mahomies.
Yeah, there's just not a lot to look at in this matchup. But hey, Blake, if you win, congratulations. Nobody's rooting against you. Okay, hat tip. It's just we call it how we see it around here.
I'm a big underdog guy, so.
Moving on to the Chubby Dubbies versus Hunter Biden's laptops. In a perfect world, this is the game of the week. This is not a perfect world. We live in a very unperfect world, folks. James Conner and Raheem Mostert are going to be big pieces to the Scott Crabtree recipe moving forward. But they've left a little to be desired. Raheem Mostert, he's fine. But James Conner Scott's not really seeing the return from that trade that he made with Dan yet. Fortunately enough, Keenan Allen, who Logan would say is probably one step away from a nursing home at this point, is not only collecting Social Security checks, but he's playing outside of his mind right now. Keenan Allen has been playing big for Scott the last few weeks. You look at Jack's team. Jack's got great running backs. Don't get me wrong. Josh Allen is not playing well. A lot of what Jack's team was depended on the play of Josh Allen. For that reason, I'm going to go with the more consistent guy. Scott only has 2 losses this year. Granted, they came in back-to-back weeks, but I do like the Chubby Dubbies in this one. I'm picking Scott.
Okay. This is beyond a doubt my favorite matchup right now. Looking again at that average fantasy points per game, Scott has the league leading with 117. I think Jack is right behind him with 115. He might be competing with the Mahomies in this.
Dang.
But I'm excited. These are 2 heavyweights going to town right now. This is kind of like watching George Foreman versus Mike Tyson.
What was the problem?
I broke my back.
What do you mean by that?
My back is broken.
What, a vertebrae or what portion?
Spinal.
Wow. High praise.
Yeah, I still think they're not going to win the championship. But that being said, I think like you said, a lot rests on Josh Allen for Peggy. But also, I'd be really curious to see what is Kenneth Walker's designation going to be, because he's questionable right now. But I think he's such he's a more consistent point getter than Madison. Although Madison's projected 10.8 points, which I think a little bit high for him. So seeing how the rest of the week goes, Kenneth Walker plays on Thursday. I'd almost want to risk playing Walker for a higher chance of him booming, because I think, Madison on Minnesota, I think they're just going to throw the ball so much more. I think his potential for getting fantasy points is going to dwindle. But this being said, I think Jack has shown time and time again with his players that they much more like to err on the side of boom. CeeDee Lamb can put up anywhere between 15 and 40 points if he wants to. Brandon Ayuk has been going off the past few games. Sam Laporta also has potential to have a really big game. I actually think I'm going to take Hunter Biden's laptop.
Wow. Okay.
Pending that Josh Allen actually does something against Philadelphia, which is going to be an interesting matchup to see.
You know, the opportunity's there for him. That could be a high point-getting game. Hopefully it's better than the Eagles-Chiefs matchup that was very highly billed last week. Hopefully we see a little more points. I know Peggy's hoping for the same if he's to win that week. All right, well, folks, we're down to the turkey and the ham here. This is the main course. This is the main event, and I've chosen the Dixieland Dreamin' versus Team Happy Ho to highlight our game of the week this week. Zach Charbonnet. No, I'm just kidding. But Zach Charbonnet is now on Williams' team. And maybe William would have won last week had he had him slotted in against Blake. But unfortunately, he chose not to. But look, Will's coming off a bad week. He now has Derrick Henry and Zach Charbonnet. And I think he's been getting great games from Herbert. Adam Thielen is somehow defying his dumpster fire of a team. Adam Thielen is scoring points at an ungoshly rate, okay, with the fact that his team is probably, I think it is, the worst team in the league. Bryce Young doesn't see any of these fantasy points, but Adam Thielen gets them all. You talk about great seasons, though. It's hard to not talk about Christian McCaffrey for Harry and Team Happy Ho. Gus Edwards, also running back number 6 in fantasy football. Harry's got them both. Harry might have the best running back room in the league. For me, I think this game comes down to the tight end spot. Because here we are, number 1 tight end, TJ Hawkinson, is going up against possibly Njoku. I know that William has somebody else slotted in right now, but I think, we're filming this on Wednesday. So still a little bit of time to tinker with the lineup. Regardless of who Will plays, I think that the tight end advantage leans Harry. I think the running back advantage, while William has beefed up, I think that leans Harry. Folks, if Trevor Lawrence, if Sunshine gets half the production that he got last week, we're going to be talking about how Harry won this game. I like Harry. Daniel?
There's so much to say about this. I think we didn't talk about quarterbacks a lot, which I think that's a point to address. Trevor Lawrence has been he's been kind of up and down.
Yes.
Week 10 he had 2 points, and week 11 he said, "You know what? I'm going to make up for all those points," and scored 32.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to score 32 against Houston. I think he's just such a wild card. I don't know if he's going to do amazing or if he's going to do terrible.
He's having an up and down season, and Houston's got a pretty good defensive backfield, so we'll see.
Yeah. I for Harry, I have a suggestion that he may or may not want to take, but I would actually take out Judge Judy over here and put in Williams, and I would actually slot in Taysom Hill into that flex position.
Harry doesn't play Taysom, and
which
it bothers me.
I don't get, because he's a big fan of Taysom Hill as well. Yeah, I think if he makes a couple moves, I think Harry can solidify himself.
Harry, are you listening? This is the mind of how a champion works.
This is how I think. I like making one risky move and allowing it to pay off. Something I'm curious about is Marquise Brown. Now that Kyler Murray is back, and he seems to be back to his old self, even though I'm still not going to play him as my starting cornerback yet. I think Marquise Brown has the potential to score more points than this. And also, I think William is starting Trey McBride because when he kept offering me 4 or 5 times for a trade, the only person I was really interested in was Trey McBride. And when we had talked about it, somebody took him off of the taxi and put him into a starting.
Really?
Lineup. Yes.
So I think he's starting.
I think he's going to start Trey McBride.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Little intel, little inside baseball here.
Man, I think this is a 50-50 game. I think Christian McCaffrey also is just too big of a name
It's tough.
not to look at. So I think really because of McCaffrey and the potential of Gus Edwards and Hawkinson, I think I'm going to have to go with Harry as well. That was a tough decision.
Yeah, and really I agree with you. It's Christian McCaffrey for me that pushes this over the line. He's tough to bet against. He doesn't have bad weeks. Christian McCaffrey's worst weeks, he's scoring like 10, 11 points. I mean, he's at an unreal clip right now. And he's playing large for Harry in the most crucial part of the season. But don't get me wrong, Dixieland Dreamin' is playing well in and of himself. So, Daniel, it's going to be an interesting race to see how it all slots out. You know, I mentioned in the beginning that the race to the bottom is equally as interesting as the race to the top because we have 3 teams vying for last place right now. It's myself, Logan, and Blake. And we've got some bumper car action at the 5 and 6 spot right now. I mean, Drew's in play for it. Dill is technically in play for it. If you want to technicalities, Dave, William, Harry, all these guys are in play for the last few spots of the playoffs. So we are heating up down the line. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
I don't think this is a controversial saying, so I'm just going to say it. I think this is the most exciting season.
Oh, wow.
Of the Joe Biden season.
Yeah.
In terms of, there's no clear front runner right now. I think Scott and Dave were that in the beginning, and Scott getting those last 2 losses has really made climbing into the playoffs seem more attainable.
Well, yeah, and Scott,
even if that doesn't change actual positions, because Scott's still been number 1 the entire time, but I think it just offers a little bit of hope in there as well.
I agree with you. There's more parity this year than there ever has been in the regular season, at least. The unseen person has still won the league the past 2 years. But in terms of regular season, there's a lot more parity. Scott, you shouldn't feel bad about 2 losses. Like Daniel mentioned, Dave was a very heavy favorite to win the league this year. Dave might not make the playoffs, so things could be worse over in Chubby Dubby land. You know, it's Thanksgiving week. This actually may come out a little after Thanksgiving. We here at Chris's Picks like to be uncommon. You know, we like to, everyone wants to skip over Thanksgiving. We say, you know what, let's take a couple extra days out of the Christmas season to celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm very thankful for all of the members of this league who are good friends of mine and the people that watch this video. Daniel, I'm thankful for you and our friendship. It's great to see you again. It's been a while. Would you like to share what you're thankful for?
Yeah, I'm thankful for all these things. I'm thankful for the friendship I've had with all of you guys for the past 10 plus years. It's been quick. It's also been long. I'm excited for many more years of getting to know you guys and just enjoying and competing on fantasy football. But for real, I'm grateful for all of you. It was great to see everybody who came out to the Thanksgiving drive today. My heart is full, and I'm excited where all of us are heading right now.
We are all blessed, and chances are, if you're watching a YouTube video about a fantasy football league that you're not in, the chances are high that God has blessed you as well. So, from all of us at Chris's Picks, from myself, from Daniel, and from our fearless producer, Andrew Amade, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. We will be back. We will be back in a few weeks after I take some law school finals. And we're looking forward to covering the playoffs with Chris's Picks. So thanks and have a great start to your Christmas season.
'Cause the older that I get, I see that life is short and bittersweet. Thank God for this Thanksgiving Day.